just how good was prime Golden State Warriors? We're going to take it back today and talk about just how good the Golden State Warriors dynasty has been over the years, and talk about the greatest team to ever live, which consisted of the 2016-2017 Golden State Warriors team. So in today's video, we're going to be going through the starting 5 players for this Golden State Warriors roster and just how good the prime Warriors were and how they compare to teams of today's era and eras of the past. So make sure to like this video, and guys, 92% of you are still not subscribed to the channel, so it means the world if you could subscribe to the channel, hit that red button down below. At the starting position, we have prime Stephen Curry. Now, prime Stephen Curry was honestly a different beast, but he was averaging 25.3 points, 6.6 assists, and 4.5 rebounds. But probably the most surprising stat of them all is that Steph Curry back in the day was actually averaging 2 steals per game. This was honestly insane due to the fact that back then they did say Curry didn't play no defense, but he actually led this team in steals, which was fantastic to see, and tied it with Draymond Green. Now, when we look at his 3-point percentages, that's where it starts to get a little bit crazy. Now, you do have to remember, this was back in 2017, where the era of basketball was very different and a different landscape than it is today. But back then, Steph Curry was still taking 10 3-point attempts per game, and he was a handful of a few that actually were able to take double-digit 3-point attempts. But he was still shooting 42% from the 3 back then, which was honestly insane, and his 2-point percentage was even great at 54%, especially for a guard. He had an effective field goal percentage of actually 58%, which is insane, and he just missed out on joining the 50-40-90 club, as his free throw percentage that season was 89%. So just missed out, but he did a fantastic job during that season, and even though he somewhat did take a backseat to Kevin Durant, I do believe he was still the same Stephen Curry that we know today. Steph is honestly a great player, but back then he was definitely a different beast. I think the greatest thing about his game back then was definitely his increase in speed. He's a lot more stronger now and a lot more bigger around the paint, but back then prime Steph Curry was quick, he was fast, his first step was honestly insane, and his pick and roll with Kevin Durant probably became one of the most lethal pick and rolls and pick and pops we have ever seen. You do got to remember, Kevin Durant can score from the 3 as well, so if Steph came off that screen, we saw Kevin Durant pop for an open 3 or drive to the lane and get a bucket there. So either way, you were definitely getting scored on when it came to that Steph and KD duo, but Steph, all in all, back then in 2017 was honestly a sight to watch. At shooting guard, we have Klay Thompson, and not just any Klay Thompson, but prime Klay Thompson at that. Now, as we all know, in the play-ins, we did see Klay Thompson go 0 from 10, but when we're talking about prime Klay Thompson, this was honestly a different animal before the 2 major injuries that he did have. During this 2016-2017 season, Klay Thompson was actually averaging 22 points, 2.1 assists, and 3.7 rebounds. And like we always mentioned, when it came to 3-point percentages, he actually had a better 3-point percentage by just 0.05% compared to Steph, but actually shot only 8 attempts, but still had a 42.5% 3-point percentage. So he did a fantastic job there, and even take it a step further, his 2-point percentage was also 52%. So he was putting out great numbers when it came to the scoring department. On top of that, at this time, Klay Thompson was considered a very, very good defender and was definitely a great defensive player. There's a reason why he is a part of the all defensive team, and on top of that, this season was a season that Klay Thompson actually dropped a 60 bomb on Indiana Pacers, a 41 bomb on Minnesota, and also a 36-point game against the Memphis Grizzlies. So people seem to forget just how great Klay Thompson was and just how good of a shooter he actually was as well. There were certain arguments actually made that Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson were even when it came to shooting. And some people thought Klay Thompson was better, some people thought Steph was better, and that's just how great Klay Thompson was of a shooter. He really was competing with the best shooter in the world, which was Stephen Curry. And it is fantastic to see just how great Klay Thompson was back in 2017. He was honestly a different animal, and I think the biggest part of his game that really made it work, especially with him, KD, and Steph Curry at this time, was due to the fact that Klay Thompson was definitely more of a spot-up 3-point shooter or a one-dribble type shooter, and because of that, they definitely would let the ball with Curry Curry and Durant a lot more, and Klay Thompson would always just be open for an open three. So it definitely did help them, and I think Klay's game has definitely evolved so much, but his 3-and-D play style back in 2017 was honestly one of the best to actually watch. At small forward, we have Kevin Durant. Now, this was probably the biggest shakeup in the NBA at the time when Kevin Durant decided to join the Golden State Warriors, who just lost a 3-1 lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers and also had the best record ever in NBA history. So this honestly shook up the league due to the fact that Kevin Durant at this time was the best player in the league, or one of the best in that matter, and a lot of people thought maybe it won't work, maybe it will, and I'm telling you right now, it worked a really good amount. When we look at his stats for this season, he actually averaged 25.1 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 4.8 assists, while also averaging 1.1 steals and 1.6 blocks. So this Kevin Durant was no ordinary Kevin Durant. It was prime Kevin Durant, which was honestly insane to see. He had a 3-point percentage of 38%, also went 61% from the 2-point range, and had an effective field goal percentage, guys, of 60%. That is honestly insane, guys. We have never seen that much efficiency in scoring in a while, and because of that, this team was honestly offensively heavy, but they had so much offense that no team could actually keep up. They actually ranked number 1 in points scored in the whole out of all NBA teams, and when we also look at that 3-point percentages, they actually ranked 3rd out of all NBA teams and ranked 1st in 2-point percentages as well. They also had the highest offensive rating, ranked number 1 in that, and number 3 in actual pace as well. So not only were they a very good offensive team, but they were also one of the top 3 fastest teams in the league, which honestly made them a matchup nightmare for everyone. So when it came to this season as well, not many people know, but they did have a record of 67-15, so very close to their record. Now when it came to KD, he was honestly the missing piece that this team needed in order to get back and beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that is exactly what they did. Having Kevin Durant in your team, and not just any Kevin Durant but prime KD, would honestly be such an offensive boost to your game, and the fact that you have someone like Steph Curry, where at the time was considered to be the best shooter, and Klay Thompson, who was the 2nd best shooter, not just in the league but in the world, it was honestly a matchup nightmare for everyone, and no one could stop them at any cost. Power forward position, we had Andre Iguodala. Now, Andre Iguodala definitely didn't do a lot of scoring for this team, but he did a lot of great defense, and it may not have shown in the stat sheet, but he was honestly a great defensive player for this starting 5. Now, Andre Iguodala in this season was averaging 7.6 points, 3.4 assists, and 4 rebounds. He also had a 3-point percentage, surprisingly, of 37%, and also a 2-point percentage of 65%. And probably the most surprising stat of them all is that he actually had the highest effective field goal percentage for the season for any other Golden State Warriors player at 61%. So it seems that Max Kellerman was right, and we actually want Iguodala on the line. But when it came to Iguodala's game, he definitely did a fantastic job on defense, and that's what he was out there for. When you already have KD, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson all in your roster, you really don't need that much more scoring. That's what Andre Iguodala just did, was to provide that defense, and he did help out quite a lot. Their defensive rating for this Golden State Warriors team was actually 2nd out of all 30 teams, which is insane to see. And on top of that, when we look at points allowed, assists allowed, and rebounds allowed, they also all ranked in the top 15. So they were a great defensive team, and Andre Iguodala was definitely a big leader in that and a big component. They ranked number 1 in assists, number 1 in steals, and number 1 in blocks. Now when it came to Iguodala's game, although he didn't provide a lot of offense, I think the greatest thing about Iguodala at this team was due to the fact that his ability to guard 1 through 5 was really good. This was during a time where small ball was starting to become a big thing, but the fact that Iguodala was able to guard centers pretty effectively and also power forwards, even though he isn't the tallest guy out there, it really did help this team remain into a small ball lineup, remain fast, and really push the pace, which is why they did rank, in the top 3 of pace as well. And at center position, we had Draymond Green. Now, this was honestly revolutionary because small ball big men were honestly not a thing at this time. We've seen such great big men who were still, under 6'8", such as Charles Barkley, do very well, but at the times this did not exist, and he really did revolutionize the game and really bring small ball back, especially to this Golden State Warriors roster. As you all know, Draymond does stand at 6'6", but during this season he averaged 10.2 points, 8 rebounds, and also 7 assists, while also getting 2 steals and 1.4 forward blocks, which was fantastic to see. He also had an effective field goal percentage of 50%, which may have surprised a lot of people. So although he was doing everything out there from rebounds and assists, he still could also give you a pretty bucket, and I honestly do think that really helped this team become what it was, especially during its era. Draymond at this time was honestly fantastic. He could honestly do everything out there. The fact that he had the strength of a big man but also had the speed of a guard, he was honestly a matchup nightmare for everyone. And the fact that they had him, Andre Iguodala, and Klay Thompson, who were all great defensive juggernauts, it really made this team not only just good on offense but on defense as well. And that's why when it came to actually their defensive rating being at number 2, I think those 3 players really did play a huge part. But on top of that, they did rank 7th in rebounds, and I think Draymond definitely helped out in that section. But I think the biggest thing about Draymond's game is the fact that he was also a playmaker as well at that power forward position. So not many people give Draymond Green the credit where credit is due, but I do believe he did a lot of great things to this game and also provided a lot of versatility to the big men that we know in today's game. Now in today's era, we see a lot of big men that know how to shoot, know how to pass, know how to dribble, stay very quick and light on their feet. And I do believe one of the biggest components of that was Draymond really helping this team and becoming a power forward or center position that a lot of people like.